Thank you so much for the film. You know, it's a serious film about a very serious subject, but what I really appreciated was how it gives the time to deal with the long-term impact of war. And I wanted to ask you first, Angelina, about adapting the book with the novelist, and what choices you were making about where you wanted to keep the focus as you turned it into a film.
He said to me when I first met with Barrico, he said, they're going to force you to change the end. They're going to force you to pick a country. They're going to force you to decide what year it is. Try to hold. And because it's intended, this is what it's intended to be, you know, but sometimes these things don't, we don't get to leave them because there's an impulse or a feeling that you have to finish something or explain something. So now I think back, I feel like he was almost challenging me instead of warning me. So I think it was the commitment to that it's universal. I think the book is so strong, but really it rested so much on what could be alive at that table. We shot so much because I didn't know how much. Until they gave their extraordinary performances, I didn't know how much I was going to be able to stay and how much I was going to have to reenact. And because they were so strong, I was able to stay and be pulled into. So really I was in some way prepared to adapt in different ways. But then it was them.
Yes. And at what point did you choose your cast for the film? At what point did you decide that Salma and Damien were the ones that needed to be in these two roles?
I mean, I thought of Salma early, and I called her, and she said no.
What? Salma.
You didn't know I was going to say that, did you? I was going to admit it.
I love it that you're saying it. First, I didn't know she was going to direct it.
Microphone.
I got confused in this. The beginning, she sent me the script. I was looking for material, and I always get confused. She sent me the script, and I said something. I said, "It's super interesting, but it's completely director dependent, so I don't know."
And she is the director.
I didn't know, yeah. And then she comes back to me. And we're talking, and it comes out that it's her directing. And she said, well, if you really, really don't want to do it, which I don't understand why, who should I cast? And I go, but what do you mean? You're directing it? I thought you were just producing it. And no, this is my next. Now, mind you, I was confused, but she always has a lot of projects, you know, so I thought it was going to be a different one going first, you know, and she was just producing. And all of a sudden, it just went like, boom. I know I'm producing it in 2 months. You better get, make a decision or something. And then I said, I'm afraid to suffer so much. I don't want to put myself through this character. I've suffered my entire life. Now life is good for a moment. I don't want to go to a movie. I just got to be in pain the entire time. I don't want to go there.
But you did. What made you decide?
She convinced me. I don't even remember. I don't know, before I knew it, I was already on the set, loving it. No, I in all our conversations about her movie, I realized this was so much more than that. And so much more than war. And before I knew it, I still can't get rid of Nina inside of me. It's a haunting. She took over.
Damien, can you talk a little bit about speaking with Angelina about the film and deciding to do it? But then also, this is so much of the second half of the film is a two-hander, and it depends so much on the connection that you have with each other. And can you talk a little bit about how you developed that and working on set with Salma also?
I got an email from my agent Tracy Brennan and saying, yeah, lovely Tracy Brennan, and saying, Angelina, I would like you to read this story, this script, and that alone was a little bit crazy, right? It was an honor for me to just be able to read that, and knowing Alessandro Barico's work. I did his monologue, Novecento, which the film that Tim Roth did was based, and then of course I knew Silk, and then my first approach to Without Blood was with the script that Angelina sent me, and at some point I couldn't continue to read because I was fully crying. And I had to stop, and I called Tracy, and I said, "We have to do whatever is necessary to do to make this film." And then I wrote a long letter to Angelina, explaining what my feelings were about the work and the character and everything else. And I tried to explain what I was feeling, not only as a spectator but also as an actor, and the things that we could do together. And it was and then we had the chance to talk about it extensively, and that alone was a gift, and that set up the whole thing for the future, for our future encounter and work on set. And when I knew that Salma was going to do it, I was so relieved, because when you embark yourself into such a heavy type of work, you need someone to support you and to hold you back and to be there for you. And I've known Salma for many years. This is our third film together, and I knew she would be there for me. And I was jumping off a cliff with no safety net, but she was my safety net. And I don't know any more generous peer than Salma in many different ways, because Angelina and Salma, they did everything possible. They moved the dates, the personal things that they had to do.
We wanted him badly.
for me to be able to make it and go there. And this is the most difficult role that I played in my life.
Me too, eh? Me too.
Yeah, and we were connected in that sense in many different ways, but we were there sitting at that table for long hours. We wouldn't even move. And when you go into something crazy like that, you need a good soul and a beautiful artist and a free director, fearless director, brave director such as Angelina.
And Angelina, I just want to ask you, on set with these two wonderful actors and a lot of dialogue and a lot of emotional peaks and valleys between the two of them, what are you saying to them on set? How are you guiding them through the dynamics of this relationship as it's evolving?
I mean, there's so much they probably don't realize I said to them separately, so I wouldn't tell you everything now. But it was almost like, they had to come to the table with one point of view, strongly, and then the table had to, and the conversation had to actually, they had to convince each other through the days that would happen, and they would give space for each other, and they would listen to each other, and then they would the next day have heard the other and ask different questions, and it kind of kept changing, and I had this privilege of being there watching them and listening to them as they would kind of lead all of us through this and let it happen and be so open. So a lot of it, I was guiding a little, but I was listening a lot. And there are many other actors here that are in the film that I realize are not sitting with us tonight. They're going to be shy, but they're here.
Yeah. Salma.
I want to correct myself on something. It's not the most difficult role I played. It's the most complex. But it was kind of easy in a way now. If I really think about it, it seemed really hard. I was surprised how fast we would get there. Honestly, It was like,
It was moving very fast.
yeah, because he was he was so good, and she was so good, and everything was so right, and the crew and the rest of the cast, it was just something that kind of flow. I was afraid every day because they would she would ask for impossible things, and we'd look at each other.
Oh, you need your mic.
With from time to time, she would ask for unexpected, kind of impossible things, or just beautifully strange things, and sometimes we'd look at each other and say, "What?" And to be specific, there's a range of things, but. She was doing so well that she was ahead of time. It never happens. So you saw there's a lot of dialogue, right? And she would go, guys, good news. It's amazing. We're doing so well. We're ahead of time. So I will give you, what do you need? 45 minutes to learn the next 5 pages of monologues? While I move the lights? Because I think we can shoot it today.
That was the good news.
And we were so in awe of her magic and magnificent, and so grateful because she's an amazing director. That we'd look at each other and would go, okay. And then she would leave and she'd go, how the hell are we gonna learn? How? I don't know, but let's start trying, And then it was fun, and all of a sudden we would do it, and we'd look at each other and, oh my God, I said, yes, we were surprised of ourselves.
That's fantastic. It's inspiring, actually, that you can get that from your actors. I just maybe want to ask one last question. Something that you alluded to in the introduction, that this is a film you kind of need to sit with. There's a lot of substance here, a lot of kind of deep ideas, a lot of grappling with the impact of war and what it means for each one of us. As we sit with it, as we leave the theater and we sit with this film and what you've told us in it, what kind of, words of direction, do you have any that you would offer us in terms of how we sit with a film like this? Because it could last, you could think about it days and weeks later.
I mean, it's bless you. I suppose I wish we'd just all sit together and just keep talking. I think that's the part of it, is it should just start a conversation that I don't really have an end to or an answer. I think one of the interesting things within it is this idea that now that you've seen it, you understand this idea of, well, who's a bad guy? Who's wrong? Who's right? Who's there's this idea that there's some absolute, and that and how important that is, and that the power and how hard it is to sit at that table, right? It wasn't easy for you to join them at that table. That is the hardest table to sit at, and the most important table to sit at, right? For us to get through this life, and for us to understand each other, and so much of that's happening in the world because we're unable to do that. So, I don't know. I just hope that there's more conversation, and that's really it. Just to thank you for really sitting with us, because I really know this isn't an easy one. In the beginning, as this opens and I see the violence and the pain, I know that's not easy. It's intentionally not easy. And then I thank you for staying in your seat and continuing to listen. So, thank you.
Angelina, thank you for the film. Thank you, Salma. Thank you, Damien. Please join me in thanking the team from Without Blood.
No Q&A, no question.